Hello everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel called Living in Hayward, Wisconsin. I'm Audrey Miller, your local real estate expert. I'm also the broker owner of Northwest Wisconsin Realty Team, and I'm glad you joined us here where we talk about all things real estate related and about living in Hayward and the surrounding areas. And today we're going to talk about off-water properties, price points for those, days on market, average sale price versus list price, what area you can get more for your money in terms of off-water, as we haven't tackled that subject before. So today I want to delve into that, and I hope you enjoy the information that I'm providing here. So off-water properties, I've done several videos regarding on-water properties, what you can afford on a lake, what type of lake you might want to be on, which specific lake. And if you haven't watched those, feel free to check them out. I've also done a video about vacant land, but I have not yet done a video on price points and information on off-water residential homes, which is another area that I specialize in. So I wanted to kind of give you an overview first of the information that I'm going to be providing today. First of all, I am focusing on Sawyer and Washburn counties because that's where I do probably 85 to 90% of my business. I'm based out of Hayward. Our office is located right on Main Street. Feel free to stop in anytime during business hours, but I do cover an area about 45 minutes in any direction from Hayward. So that gets over to Winter to the east, up towards Cable, Drummond to the north, Trigo, Minong area to the west, and the Birchwood, Sorona, maybe Rice Lake area to the south. If you kind of draw a circle around Hayward, 55 minutes maybe in any direction, that is the area that I cover. So we're talking about specifically Washburn and Sawyer today, even though I do cover small portions of Bayfield, Burnett, and Douglas County from time to time. And I also restricted the acreage on these parcels to 20 acres or less because some properties have sold with 40 or 80 or 100 acres with a home on them, and that is going to skew our averages quite a bit. The typical person is purchasing something either in town with minimal acreage or maybe 3, 5, 10 acres of land with their property. So for these statistics, I did remove anything that had more than 20 acres to provide what I felt was a more accurate average sale price, etc. And then I also am only including data from the Realtors Association of Northwest Wisconsin, which is the specific MLS that I am part of. That's where the data was gathered from. There are some properties that sell in our area that are not posted in our MLS, but the majority, again, are in the MLS. So that is the source of information where I got these data points from today. And you might see me looking back and forth between a paper today. I hope that's not too annoying, but I have a lot of statistics and information and hard to remember all of that in my head. So I will be glancing back and forth from my notes and printouts today. So bear with me on that. I'm back in my home office today. I have a little different hairdo than normal. Hope you like it. But anyway, let's continue on here with this information that I am hoping will be very helpful to you. So in the last year, and this would be from mid-July 2023 to mid-July 2024, which is where we're at right now, there have been about 305 properties, off-water residential properties that have sold in Sawyer and Washburn County through our MLS. Looking at it globally, the average sale price for all 305 of those properties is right at $251,000. I'm sorry, that was the list price for those properties. The sale price was $246,800. So properties sold for 97.8% average of full asking price. And I get into this discussion with buyers a lot these days. And I will say that, sometimes there's education needed. People want to come in with a lower offer when a property's only been on the market for a bit. And we just aren't in a market where that is going to typically work. As you can see, there's only a 2.2% under list price that places are selling for across the board. That is the average. And the average days on market, and again, this is from the time that it comes on the market, so the official list date until it actually closes. That number is 89 days for all of off-water properties in Sawyer and Washburn counties here in northern Wisconsin. And typically that means that they're going under contract on an average of maybe 30 to 40 days, since the financing process and closing process usually takes 45 to 60 days. On average, probably 45 days. So then I wanted to talk about Sawyer County only because that is where Hayward is located, and that is the county that I do the highest majority of my work in. So I want to just talk about Sawyer County in particular. Sawyer County tends to be more expensive, especially when you're closer to Hayward and Stone Lake. And a little bit later in the video, I'm going to break down the different price point averages in the different areas within the geographic area that I cover. So in Sawyer County, there were 166 residential off-water properties in the last year, and the list price average was $268,900. The average sale price was $263,800. So only $5,000 under full list price and that average was 97.4%. Days on market in Sawyer County was actually a tiny bit higher than what it was in Washburn and Sawyer combined at 100 days on market for the off-water properties in the last year. And just an FYI, or maybe an interesting piece of information to compare and contrast waterfront and off-water if you're considering both, looking at both, or maybe you're watching this video and you're actually looking for on-water. Waterfront in Sawyer County was only on the market for 77 days versus 100 for off-water, and the sale price versus list was 98.8%. So if you want a property, you're gonna have to come in at full price is basically the interpretation of that. So keep that in mind when you're looking at properties. Unless the property's been on the market for quite some time, there could be some more wiggle room from the seller depending, on their situation. But if it's just been on the market, you can basically figure on paying full price, and that is how you will obtain the property that you'd like to get. Okay, and then I wanted to break down for you a little bit just by description, a brief description of how many properties sold in each price category and kind of a little overview of what you could get in what town for that price point. So under 100,000, there's very, very little. I'm not even going to address that category. Those aren't really the type of houses that you could live in year round or permanently. That's more like small cabins or something that was a tear down or needed a lot of work. So I'm starting at the 100 to 200 range. There was 127 properties in that range out of the off-water properties that sold. And the majority of those would be in town. They'd be older houses, maybe cabins that are off-water that are small or need a little bit of work. Some examples, there was a property in Hayward, 1,400 square feet on 0.29 acres that sold for $200,000. That one had been built age unknown, but possibly fixed up somewhat or remodeled at some point. Another one was a property in Springbrook on 5 acres, and I remember showing this one. It sold for $196,000, but it needed some work. It was a log home, needed some repairs, but that did have some acreage and some additional outbuildings as well. A couple other examples on the lower end of the 100 to 200 range would be a 3-bed, 1-bath home in Spooner on a small city lot, 1,500 square feet, sold for $140,000. I'm guessing that was quite an old home. Yes, it was built in 1940. And another example would be a cabin on 10 acres in the Ojibwa area that sold for $134,500. Had the 10 acres, but was in the Ojibwa area with 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. So those are some examples of the 100 to 200 range. And then in the $200 to $300 range, there were 91 properties that sold off water in the last year in Washburn and Sawyer County. Some examples for this, there's a property in Hayward, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1,700 square feet, newer construction, built in 2012 on 1 acre that sold for the higher end of that range at $300,000. A property in Spooner, built in 2004, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, sold for $295,000. Then you go to the lower end of that range. There was a property down by Winter. It was on 2.6 acres, 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, sold for $212,000. And then another one back in Hayward that was just on a city lot, built in 1970, sold for $205,000. And that one had quite a few bedrooms, kind of small bedrooms and cut up, but also had 2 bathrooms in that home as well. So that's the 2 to 300 range. And I'm sorry I'm going kind of fast on this, but if you're not interested, maybe you want to skip ahead or something. The 3 to 400,000 range was 55 properties that sold in the last year. Some examples of this on the higher end, a brand new townhome, which had like a twin home where you're buying one half of the house, which was 2,600 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. That sold for $399,000, but that was brand new in town. Another one down by Shell Lake on 4 acres with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. And this one was actually my listing, so I know it really well. It sold in a few days for full price of $395,000, but that was on 4 acres, really nice setting just outside of Shell Lake, had a nice big garage with a small guest quarters in the garage. And the house there was 2,700 square feet. On the lower end of that range, a property that was 2 beds, 2 baths, 1,400 square feet on half of an acre in the Hayward area sold for $310,000. That one was newer construction as well. And then a property on half an acre near Hayward, kind of on the outskirts, 3 beds, 2 baths, built in 2004, sold for $305,000. So these are just to give you some ideas of the different properties that sold and kind of what you can get in those price points. And then the 400 to 600 and some range, I'm just kind of grouping these together because above 400,000 without properties with large acreage, there was only a total of 32 properties that sold. So I'm kind of grouping that rest of that all together here. So in Hayward, a 4 bedroom, 3 bath, and this is in a really nice neighborhood, kind of out behind the high school in Hayward, on 1.5 acres, 4,300 square feet, sold for $629,000. That home was built in 2006. There's another one in Hayward or very close to Hayward, 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 3,100 square feet, built in 2013. That one sold for $600,000. And then on the lower range of the 4 to 650 price point, there was a property again in Hayward on 1.5 acres, almost brand new construction, or it may have been brand new construction. 4 beds, 2 baths, sold for $419,900. And And one last one was a property on 4 acres down by Whitefish by Stone Lake. And that was 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2,700 square feet on 4 acres. And that sold for $412,000. No lake access with that, just a nice home on a few acres in the Stone Lake area. So that leads me into my next point. I hope you found that helpful just to kind of hear what you could get for certain price points. And maybe that gives you an idea on pricing. And then I wanted to do one other part of the video, which is about the different areas and prices in those areas. So I'm going to go from most expensive to least expensive. I think it's a fairly commonly known fact that the Hayward and Stone Lake areas, those zip codes or those addresses are the more expensive of the area that I cover. I've said that in many videos, and it continues to be true with the residential off-water properties as well. So Hayward is a really big zip code though. It goes from, the town of Hayward, it goes east probably 25, 30 miles. It goes north up towards Cable, like about halfway to Cable. It goes kind of southwest over towards Springbrook, which would be the next town with its own zip code. And then over partway to Trigo to the straight west. So it's a very large zip code. And Hayward is the hub and the center of jobs in our area, of amenities, shopping, restaurants, all of that. Is the hub of that is Hayward. Entertainment. There's lots and lots of restaurants and bars outside of that area, but the majority of the rest of the amenities are in Hayward or close by. But Stone Lake is kind of the sister town to Hayward, because Stone Lake is a small town that has a little family dollar store, Dollar General, I guess it is. It's got another little grocery store. There's a number of bars and restaurants and a lot of really nice lakes by Stone Lake. So, and it's a short commute to Hayward. It's a 15 to 20 minute drive to Hayward, depending where you are in the Stone Lake area. So I lumped those two together because the prices are fairly similar for the Hayward and Stone Lake areas. So the average sale price for all of the properties with a Hayward or Stone Lake address that were sold between mid-July 2023 and mid-July 2024 was $295,000. So if you remember at the beginning, I said that the average price for all of the properties was $246,800. That means that the Hayward Stone Lake area is substantially more percentage-wise than the other areas combined. But you'll see as we go down through here how the price drops as you go to other areas. The next one is the Trigo-Minong area. The average sale price for the off-water properties that sold in that area was $227,000. The next area was Spooner. A lot of the houses in Spooner and properties that sold would have been in town, and in town is always the least expensive. You don't have the privacy of out of town, and you don't have the acreage. Usually they're on half acre, maybe a 1 acre lot, maybe a quarter acre lot. So I think a lot of the properties around Spooner were probably in the town of Spooner, which does have a lot of its own amenities as well. That's a town that is actually similar in size to Hayward, just doesn't have all the premier lakes, so it hasn't been built up quite as much as Hayward. But the average sale price in the Spooner area was $215,000. And then the other area is the Winter, Ojibwa, Radisson, Coudray area, which is along the corridor of Highway 70, heading east out of like the Stone Lake area. And that's about half hour to 45 minutes from Hayward, depending where you are in those areas. And the average sale price there was $129,000. And I didn't break out any others like Birchwood or Excellent areas, just kind of giving you the main areas that I cover in Sawyer and Washburn and the price points. But that gives you an idea, if you're somebody who works remotely and you don't need to be as close to amenities or to be running back and forth to a job, you can definitely get more for your money in some of these outlying areas. But a lot of people prefer the Hayward and Stone Lake areas for kind of obvious reasons. So that's why the prices are a bit more competitive in that area. But it's interesting to see the difference between those different sub areas within the area that I cover. So I hope you found this to be helpful. As always, reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, if you're looking to buy or sell. I would love for you to follow along on my channel. You can subscribe, feel free to share my channel with friends, comment below, stop by our office anytime. Again, I am Audrey Miller, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you found this to be helpful.